All right, I'm just gonna post this really quick for the folks online, and then we'll get into it here. All right. So I'm gonna start with a little clip from The Dark Knight. I really dig this movie. Of course, to say it's a classic is is hyperbole and to make a cliche, but it really is. It's so many great lines from this movie. Wa alaikum salam. So, anyway, there's this line from the movie that I'll use it to open up with.
For a while there, I thought you really were a dent. The way you threw yourself after her. Look at you go. What does Harvey know about you and his little bunny? Where are they? Killing is making a choice. Where are they? Choose between one life or the other. Your friend, the district attorney, or his blushing bride to be. You have nothing to threaten me with. Nothing to do with all your strength.
Yeah, I love that line. There's nothing you can do with all your strength. So what am I even talking about here? So what I'm referring to is, I got this text today from a friend of mine, and he was telling me about apparently there's this organization called American Muslim 2024 Election Task Force. And, many of the usual players seem to be aligned with them, like CARE and a few others. And they came and they made this statement about Joe Biden, which I find somewhat humorous. So they came and they made this statement about Joe Biden that he should drop out of the race due to the way that he's polling with people and others. And I kind of wonder, is this just simply being like, are you saying something to say something? Because I think what's even more clear, and the reason why I played this clip from The Dark Knight, where Batman is trying to beat the Joker into being compliant, and his response is like, you have no power over me. There's nothing you can do. Now, obviously, we can't even do that with Joe Biden, but clearly, to me, this is not only a sign of maybe a group that is somewhat out of touch, because if Joe Biden cared about anything that the Muslims thought, I think he probably would have done some greater gesture towards the situation in Palestine, and done something to rein in the psychological maniac of the Zionists and Joe Biden, and Netanyahu and the like. And yet, actually, we saw actually the exact reverse of that. So, telling Joe Biden to do something when you have no leverage over him, and that's very different than protesting, right? It's very different than protesting, but you have no leverage over him. So I'm wondering where does this come from? But even more to that, I think it shows, for me, it's signs of an unhealthy relationship that, perhaps we'll do a podcast on this, is that I feel the American Muslim community is still not even really clear as to what it wants from America. So I don't think that there's a very clear list of demands, nor do I think there's a very clear set of expectations of what is life in America. And I think without the two of those, doing things like this, like, we're going to release a statement, I think to me is obviously premature, but maybe a little bit decadent, And I think some of this comes from what happens when people conflate their particular application of a thing to translate to their necessity for like some sort of grand narrative. And so today I was putting together some notes for my tafsir class that I teach on the weekend. And in it, I was trying to highlight some of the, because again, this is a tafsir class, not really for serious students. It's for people that attend the masjid, from now and again. And so it's really more what I like to say, appreciation of the Quran or appreciation of tafsir, right? So it's not like a really hardcore, intellectual class. I'm not handing out ijazah and all this stuff. But still, so anyway, I was reading and I was doing some preparing to try to summarize not only the different approaches to tafsir, but to highlight some of the different methodological differences between some of the major scholars of tafsir, of the books that people are familiar with. So anyway, I'm going through and I'm doing my research, and it just kind of gave me pause to stop and think about the term minhaj and manhaj. So there's minhaj. Maybe I can type it here in the chat for, let's see. So there's a minhaj, and I'll write in the Arabic, right? And then there's also manhaj, right? And then there is manhaj. So I wrote that there in the chat for those who are on Instagram. And so if you take, for instance, there's the passage in the 5th chapter in Surah Al-Ma'idah that begins with وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ. Right, so this is going to be, I think, in the 48th verse. And so towards the middle of this verse, Allah Ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. And that for everyone, right? And so this is talking about for every nation and for every prophet that was sent to such a nation, they have been given a set of laws, shir'atan, and also minhajan. You could say like a path. And this is what I mean is that some people have conflated their manhaj for their minhaj. Now, is this just word salad? Am I just playing games? No, I think it's actually quite important in that we see a lot of division in our community, and sometimes those divisions are due to people feeling that they have a sort of monopoly on the right understanding. And this isn't to say that there are not understandings of Islam that are not incorrect. A simple example would be like the Nation of Islam. If you think that God is a man, this is an understanding of Islam that is incorrect. Likewise, if you take the Qadiani movement, the so-called Ahmadis, if you think that there is some type of revelation being revealed, some type of communication between Allah Ta'ala, between God and His creation, that there is some type of nubuwah after the passing of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then this is incorrect. That being said, within the confines of correct understandings, there's still sometimes these knockdown, drag-out fights that occur. And I feel a lot of times this is done clumsily because, one, people don't understand the difference between the minhaj, because in the statement of لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ, well, of course, and we have appointed for each and every one of you a sharia and like a set of laws and a general path, right? A way to live, a way to be, a general path. Well, obviously there was one given to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So none of us has the capacity to say that we have a complete monopoly. Now, we will have our differences of opinion, but even that's somewhat misunderstood. But I think people sometimes take these too far, and then they begin to split up with one another. They begin to tear each other apart. And so, like, when my friend Yahya and I were talking Saturday after class, and I said, it's sad that you will find, because what happened was Saturday, the second class that I teach Saturday mornings is a fiqh class. So we're reading a primer book on Maliki fiqh. And so we got to the bab of Jum'ah, right? We got to the chapter about Friday prayers. And in the chapter on Friday prayers, we were discussing how, again, some differences of opinion, but is a baseline, establishing the baseline that Jum'ah should be done in the masjid, right? So this is what the Imam was talking about in his book, is that Jum'ah, should be established, in the masjid. The adhan should be called from the masjid, so on and so on. And that, therefore, the building of masajid should not just simply be willy-nilly, but this should be done, as Imam al-Majjaji mentions. He mentions that he says durura, like it should be done out of necessity. Like, why are you building another masjid? Are you building it because, as he calls ad-diq, like, is the space too small now? Like, maybe you outgrew your space and so you need to expand, and maybe like you just can't keep expanding the building. So, okay, fine, we have to go open another masjid. That's a legitimate case. So he goes into like all of these different reasons for, and I'm not say against, but like what is the reason to legitimately open up another masjid? And we should be careful, because excessively, we're going to build a masjid here and there and this and that, it can not only potentially be a waste and a strain on community resources, but it can lead to division, right? It can lead to division. And in fact, often the impetus why people are doing that is not because you've outgrown the masjid, but because one group couldn't have their way to run and dictate how things were going to be, so then they go and open up another masjid. And this is what I mean about people conflating their manhaj for the minhaj. People, you could kind of think about it like, what is a way to think of the word? So a manhaj with the sound, right? You could think of this as like a curriculum. Like if you want to get a degree in, I don't know, computer programming, well, there'll be a curriculum, right? And it will, in most educational curriculums, it's progressive. So you start here at the bottom with the basics, and right, you build off of that, develop a scaffolding, and then you go on. But the minhaj, like the goal is that you learn to be a computer programmer. You can write software, right? That's the minhaj. And so likewise, I feel like with some of these groups, we've kind of put the cart before the horse. And then also, again, I think it really conveys a sense of desperation, that you need to say something to Joe Biden when you're not in a position to punish him. I mean, that's why I played that clip. Such a, the script and everything, really insightful. Like, here's a character that, yeah, can beat most people to a pulp with their bare hands. But that isn't going to, this person who is like, crazy, out of their mind, right? You think being able to punch somebody in the face will get you what you want. But in the case of the Joker, punching him in the face is not going to remotely, not only not get you what you want, but the game that he's playing with you is going to psychologically destabilize you. And so this has been my overarching concern with American Muslims wading into politics. I don't take the position of politics is haram and, this kind of thing. But I also don't think it's a good idea to do politics if you don't understand yourself, you don't understand politics, you don't understand the political system. As I said, your list of demands are not clearly articulated. Your comprehension of what reality is also not solid and not clear. And it can just wind up creating an unhealthy dependency. This is why I feel like there's an unhealthy dependence on politics in the Muslim community, in the same way that I've seen an unhealthy developed psychological dependence on politics in my own community, meaning the black community. So when you look at, not that politics is completely ineffective, and I think anybody that would say that, I don't know, it's just not being historically true. So if you look at what happened in America and the plight of black people as it developed from Jim Crow through the civil rights era, there's no doubt that we can't call some of that politics. And so to say that politics is completely ineffective, I think is short-sighted and just simply not true. That being said, also look at where black folks are at now. Look at where we're at now and how we've constantly been given this political promise of deliverance from all of our problems. And yet, all the while, there's been this culture that has developed, and not just black folks exclusively, but just giving that as an example. Like there has been a culture that has festered or failed to grow or develop since then, or in the intermediate period of these promises that never come true, that has led to a life that is quite detrimental to living a good, solid, productive life as a black person in America. So I think that if we don't have a clearly articulated plan, we run the risk of this. And again, I feel like politics has become just as divisive, perhaps even more so. This is just my opinion. I think politics has become more divisive than the study of creed or aqidah. Obviously, the study of creed or aqidah is studying the Book of Allah, which is meant to bring together and not to separate. Politics is all about, separation. And so I feel that the place that we're in now, the space that we're in now as a community, politically is not good. I don't think that it is an intelligent space. I don't think it's a well-articulated space. I think it also is a space that, unlike, let's say, the more traditional religious space, sure, you can have a joker pop up here and there that can mislead people, but it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder. Like if you haven't really studied Islam, it's going to show. But politics? Matter of fact, it seems to attract people that don't know anything and only follow their hawa. They only follow their caprice, their greed. And so I feel that it's not attracting the best and the brightest. I also feel personally that maybe, and again, this is probably just the old man conspiracy theorist in me, is that I sometimes get the feeling that people that either just couldn't hack it intellectually to become an authority on Islam through the traditional route, like, learning Arabic and studying things and on and on. Well, so now there's a quick path, the dark side, right? The quick path to become an authority figure in the Muslim community is through politics. And in fact, we've seen now where increasingly on the manabir, right, on the pulpit, on Fridays, there are essentially political activist speakers now that are supplanting imams and trained, qualified religious leadership that are now preaching from the mimbar. And of course, their political activism now is like a package deal. It's a combo. Like you can't opt out of the fries and the Coke. You have to get it all together. And I think that is, that is especially detrimental and very worrisome, that the message that it's sending to the rank and file Muslim is that there is no difference between religion and politics, or, as a no longer do you need to be the kind of seriously committed Muslim to pray and fast and to do things through the so-called traditional or prescribed way through revelation to please God. But now, it's very dunyawi, it's very nafsi, it's very, egotistical. I don't think that's very healthy either. And it is easy, again, for people that don't have the requisite training. Also, I think people that are young, in politics, in some way, just look at now what we're dealing with Joe Biden, right? So now, some people are calling it ageism, but, clearly the man is out of his mind and he's too old to do the job, and he should just, and I'm not saying that because I don't vote, but obviously the man just he should not be there, let alone his own, moral decrepit, my God, I'm losing my mind here, decrepitude, because of his own moral decrepitude, putting that aside, just his own physical decrepitude, the man should just, should step aside. That being said, I feel that the love affair that politics has with youth, especially in a culture where, 300, 500 years ago, being young was very different than now, right? Our notion of what youth is about and the capacity for young people is totally different. And so immaturity runs rampant. And you should be really careful about that. So, this was just sort of like a little bit of a tangent and an old man rant. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, what are you guys doing? You can make any statement you want to the Democratic Party. They're not going to change. They're not going to stop what they're doing with the Zionists, because they're all beholden to them, because Israel, they have, AIPAC and Israel, they're all together. They're all one and the same. They have bought and paid for, and this is not a conspiracy theory. This is simple fact. They have bought and paid for the vast majority of politicians. So that's why I think there should be quite a different strategy going forward of how to live a good life as a Muslim, how to speak out and live morally righteous life, so-called speaking truth to power. But also I think we have to make sure that in our effort to speak truth to power, that we also remain obedient to power. And by power, I don't mean political power. I don't mean governments. I mean, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I mean being obedient to Al-Aziz al-Kabir, right? To the most powerful one. I think that is also needs something to be seriously considered. So anyway, I think my cat just threw up. So I'm going to go check that out. And inshallah, we'll see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.